guys, welcome back to the Independent Investor Channel. My name is Ryan. The reason why a lot of people tune into the channel is that they can relate with the message. And if you guys can relate with any of these topics that we're going to talk about today on trying to determine what side of zero you guys work on, whether or not you're living in a vacuum or you're pursuing some sort of financial security by achieving a positive interest rate in this country and abroad, it's very, very difficult to pursue. And that's why I came out with this channel. A lot of it was to get people excited about the prospects of building a financial future, which in fact takes time. It really does. It takes time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, guys. So if you do end up relating with some of these topics and fundamental wealth building premises that I talk about on the Independent Investor Channel, I would ask you to consider subscribing to the channel, guys. Let's get right into it. When I was doing my research on this topic, it was just amazing, and it really brought a lot of clarity to me as to why we came out with this message in the first place. And I've got a few subscribers to the community coming back and saying, Ryan, it looks like I might actually be a little bit down in my portfolio this year, or I'm just up in a couple of names. And you're looking at it from a short-term perspective, all right? What I mean by that is so many people live beyond their means. They really do. The statistics back it up. Median household income in the United States is just around $56,000. But what I'm going to walk you through is really what I consider the magnet to the negative. It's what I always refer to as living in the vacuum. And I think a lot of people may not even understand that they're living on the wrong side of zero. They're living in the negative with respect to these four categories that I'm going to talk about that are honestly built to consume individuals. Now, in each category that I'm going to talk about, some of these consumptions are actually somewhat justifiable. For example, a student loan debt can be absolutely justifiable if in fact you're making that investment in yourself, taking on that level of debt with the hopes of seeking a higher than average income or salary later on down the line. In essence, you're going to utilize that degree to improve your financial posture into the future. As well as if you've got, a mortgage out there and, you end up improving upon your investment in your property, you end up gaining some equity in that property. Certainly bonds and real estate are actually the preferred choice now for investors, as we've got about 54% of the population out there that are even invested in the stock market. All right. And I really think it helps to shed some light on really where we are in some of these debt categories. And as you're sitting back participating in this dialogue with me on the Independent Investor Channel, I want you to ask yourself a couple things or realize a couple things about these categories. I've been through all four of them, okay? I have experienced them, I have worked through them, and I have, in many cases, eliminated the ones that I felt like I could work on and perhaps eliminate and not be subject to. Second, I'd like you to sit back and kind of understand and say, wow, Ryan's talking about these four categories. Am I subject to all of them? Am I 4 out of 4? All right? And this is not a baseball game, guys. If you're participating in all four, I want you to ask yourself some hard questions with regard to, is this something that's going to be sustainable for the long term, number one, or more importantly, is there something that I can do to maybe help myself in eliminating or drastically reducing my contribution to some of these categories that are working toward this magnet away from that zero line, really. And that's really the bottom line question here for you guys. And if you can answer it at the end of this video, what side of zero do you guys live on? You're really, really going to have some clarity on this topic. And for new investors, new folks that don't know a whole lot about personal finance, this is really going to be an eye-opener for you guys. So let's kind of get started a little bit. When I'm talking about what side of zero we're talking about, how much average debt. The debt has just went up. There was a staggering statistic released just this week on the total household debt has just went over $13.5 trillion. So I started to do a little bit of research on this, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like, what does it take to actually qualify to put yourself into this first category and take on what is an average of $182,421 of mortgage debt, all right? It takes a debt to income ratio of less than 50%, and you guys have to understand that is your debt expenditures compared to your income, all right? So for example, if you make $5,000 and your debt is $2,500, okay, your debt to income there is 50%, and you're looked upon favorably to enter into this category. Now, I'm not here to judge, guys. $182,000 from where I come from is a lot of money. I could afford to go out, according to this statistic, and jump into a $600,000 house. Do I choose to do it? No, I don't. I currently rent, okay? Because it's for some of the other reasons that I'm going to talk about later on in the video that really make me hesitant in just going out there and taking on that level of overhead. Now, a lot of people think because they apply and because they are somewhat deemed eligible to take on this level of mortgage debt, that somehow that gives them the green light to go ahead and do that. And I want to take some caution in that, guys. If you're really looking to build financial wealth into the future, really make sure that you're looking at living within your means. I've owned 2 properties in my past. I paid $140,000 for both of them. I've never actually taken a mortgage out for what is deemed to be the average mortgage rate in the United States at $182,000. Furthermore, when we kind of look at this here and we look at the average interest rate that's moved up significantly, especially over the last couple years, we're looking at an average mortgage rate of 5%. That was actually staggering to me, in that people are jumping into these mortgages here at an average of 5% for your mortgage. Now, what's my piece on this? All right, you've got to have a place to live. All right, but I know a lot of people that are making way above average income that are actually opting to rent, okay, to not carry that overhead, to not be subject to that higher than average mortgage. You guys all know about the amortized schedule. I'm not going to get into that, how much you'll actually pay for your mortgage over time, which is probably going to be close to double this $182,000. What cost you $182,000 is probably going to cost you close to $300,000 over the course of a 30-year fixed mortgage, which is where this average statistic comes from. But it just adds a little bit of clarity to say, you know what, I hear what Ryan's saying, but we're going to settle into an area, maybe it's less than the median cost for living, and we're going to take that chance and do that. But we are going to focus on some of the other areas, all right? So just for clarity and kind of separating the gray matter into black and white, mortgages is one of those things that I feel like the institutions have got their meat hooks in on regular people. That's just one of those things that is always constantly pulling you away from a positive interest rate, all right? The next one is student loans, and this is an interesting one as well. The average student loan debt is $50,626. That's just amazing to me. I've went through student loan debt, and I went through student loan debt at about just around $10,000, and it was hard to pay that off. I can only imagine how difficult it is to look at this, and is it acceptable? Well, it's relative, okay? If you've used that and leveraged that degree that you've got to seek out better than average employment in this country, absolutely, all right? But a lot of folks are struggling now with college degrees that can't find jobs out there. And my heart goes out to you, because the whole idea and the premise when we're being brought up is get good grades, go to college, you'll get a good job. And I don't know if that's typically as close to reality as we would like it to be. But I think for the debt discussion, if you do end up incurring some student loan debt to invest in yourself, we're looking here at an average interest rate of 7.5%. Again, putting ourselves on the negative side of this spectrum and just adding to and compounding, pulling us away from this positive interest rate, all right? And student loans can be one of those things that as we move up the scale here, these become, in my opinion, less acceptable, okay, as forms of debt that we take on with the chance of making some appreciation down the line. Now, the top two are really the two worst ones, in my opinion. These are the ones that we take on a lot of the times irrationally. This fits into the category of, in so many cases, living beyond our means. Okay, it really does. The first two, not so much. But when we start talking about auto loans, it is amazing to me the amount of auto loan. This is a per household average of $29,000. You got to figure 2 cars per household, 2 working families, whatever it may be, a spouse and a spouse to get back and forth from work at $29,000 of average auto debt. And we're talking about the average auto loan running at 4.21%. You run that out, and this $30,000 of auto loans over the course of that loan probably turns into about 25% more than that. You're probably ending up paying, $40,000 for those auto loans that you're splitting between 2 car payments. And the thing about it is, if you're sitting on the other side of this message and you're like, well, we got to get back and forth from work, we need to have a car. A couple things. You can stay within your means with the make and model that you do buy, all right? I'm always an advocate to just buy what it is that is going to make you happy over the long term. Here's the catch. If in fact you make the decision to enter into a certain car that's going to make you happy or get good gas mileage, or you think it's somewhat stylistically appeasing to you, stay the course. So many people knock out this debt only to turn right around and go back in and buy a new car. We got to buy a new car. The windshield wipers don't work, so we've got to justify going in and paying $15,000 more or more for another automobile, guys. And this is one of those categories that if you're looking at and you've made the mistake that everybody makes this mistake in going out and maybe buying a vehicle that might be even beyond your means. Let's say you've paid $25,000 or $30,000. Maybe you've bought that sports car. I don't know. But perhaps maybe you've bought beyond your means a little bit. You might want to consider, if you do end up purchasing another vehicle, think about it for a longer term perspective, past the terms of the loan. If you do in fact enter into terms of the loan and owning that vehicle long term, am I going to expand my family? Am I going to be traveling more, right? So the vehicle has to take that and suit those needs over the long term. So when you do inevitably get to that impasse later on in your life, you can perhaps maybe make the decision, once that's paid off, to maybe channel those dollars that you were paying to this auto loan to some other and maybe some investment vehicles. And that's where we look at these 4 tiers that are pulling us into the negative category, and maybe looking at this and saying, wow, maybe we can knock this off, right? And so when I go through these, interestingly enough, my debt to income ratio right now is 2%, and I could make it 0% on Monday, all right? I'm very proud of that, all right? They say that a healthy debt to income ratio in some of the schools of thought that I've been part of is around 20%. And I just told you what it takes to get a mortgage of less than 50%, guys. If there's any open-ended charge that I would put to my subscriber base, work to be an anomaly, honestly. Work to be in that minority of folks that have that debt to income ratio really under control. And in my opinion, under control means 0%. Zero. A good debt to income ratio is that the money that you're making is going toward whatever it is that you deem necessary. Sunken cost, living expenses, and investment capital. Those are the things that are going to make you powerful going forward and accelerate your growth going forward. Now, the last one that I want to talk about, this was the one that I talked about through the evolution of the channel. This figure has gone up from 8,800 to 13,000. The latest statistic now is $16,883 of household credit card debt. I honestly don't believe it. That's the statistic that I found online. But then again, I honestly do, because we are a country that does in fact live beyond our means. And if you're in fact out there and we're carrying this level of credit card debt, which I honestly think could be a product of owning too many credit cards at the same time and a combined of the accounts, you only need one, okay? I'm gonna give you a little secret. You only need one credit card. You don't need a credit card for Target just because you go to Target and shop. You do not need a Victoria's Secret credit card if you're gonna go there and shop. You do not need a Zales credit card. You only need one. Pick the very best one with the lowest annual fee or no annual fee that gives you the best incentive-based program to get some points and earn some money on the expenditures that you're going to make. Now, I'm going to get into this way more when I talk about my simplistic financial piece on savings account, checking account, and credit cards and how I utilize those strategically for my own benefit. You guys are really going to want to stay tuned for that. The credit cards, guys, is on the left here of the spectrum. The average credit card debt is being paid out an average of 13.8% on an annualized basis. A lot of those minimum payments are being made and your actual principal amounts are actually going up. It's unbelievable. And I really want to kind of tie this whole thing together and say, over the course of talking about these four things that are just, they're meat hooks. They've got their meat hooks on you. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking, wow, Ryan, this is really interesting. You know, I'm subject to a few of these categories. I've been subject to all of them in my life. I'm currently subject to none of them. None of them. I currently do not own a home. I do not own student debt. I have both of my cars paid for, and I do not have credit card to speak of because I have an over an average amount of savings in the credit card that can take care of my revolving credit. And that's really where the 2% debt to income ratio comes from, which I could transition to 0 if I choose, all right? But the real tie back here is I believe that a ton of people living on this side in the vacuum, basically, if you took an average of all these consumptions, we are actually starting not from 0, which would be on a level playing field. We're actually starting with an average debt of 7.6% interest rate that we're paying. Think about how difficult that is to overcome as we're trying to start an investment portfolio and you're coming to me and you're saying, Ryan, my portfolio didn't move, right? We're trying to set the seed now so that we can holistically build that up and circumvent this monster that is absolutely consuming us, guys. And this is really what we're talking about when we're talking about answering the question, do you live beyond your means? And I really, really hope to understand, talking about this side of the spectrum, most of the videos that we come out with and that we offer through the Independent Investor channel are focused on all the positives about trying to achieve this positive 8%. That's it. But if we're not working to work towards 0 to start, your activity in the stock market is going to be somewhat muted because it's always being counterbalanced to the negative investing in the vacuum. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on talking about how far in the vacuum people are living beyond their means. If you have benefited from this video at all, talking about these pillars of consumption, I want you to leave your comments in the comments section for me if you think that I've hit the mark. If you think that I've missed something in this delivery for folks, this is all aimed at providing value in seeking the truth in where people are in getting by with their household incomes and actually how much they're taking on in reality. Guys, if you know anybody out there that's looking for baseline financial information, finances, personal finance, investing, man, you want to turn them onto the message, bring them into the community, man. We are building the community based on the strength of the referral, seeking the message, and then sharing the good message with others out there that you know in your networks. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this message, and good luck in your investment future.